Today's episode starts with a recent study regarding annoying hospital beeps. There are a lot of beeps in hospitals. In the introduction of the study, it says that up to 300 alarms per patient per day. Another article I read claimed that a healthcare provider can be exposed by up to 1,000 alarms in a single shift. And yet the vast majority of alarms in hospitals are not that important. The intro of the study claims that other observational studies find that 85 to 95% of alarms are clinically irrelevant. So many irrelevant alarms, all of these irrelevant alarms cause healthcare workers to become fatigued to the sound of alarms, and this can lead to some bad situations. The Food and Drug Administration attributed 566 deaths between 2005 and 2010 to alarm fatigue. The intro of the study talks about a specific patient case in which inattentional deafness led to healthcare workers failing to respond to a low battery alarm for 72 minutes, causing the system to fail when the patient later went into cardiac arrest. And I think the patient ended up dying as a result. So there are these standards set by the IEC, the International Electrotechnical Commission, regarding alarms commonly used in hospitals, which use similar timbre, frequency range, and tone durations. And this is what the study was studying. From the introduction, quote, comparisons between this standard and a heterogeneously designed set with distinctive pitch, rhythm, and timing revealed nurses correctly identified alarms 20% more often in the latter set. Problems with these alarms are so widely recognized that their designer has even stated, quote, the published standards ignore practically all the research that has been done on the design of alarm sounds. So about the actual study that we're talking about. To test recognizability, the study played melodies to participants in different timbres, one according to the standard set by the IEC, and one in a more pleasant xylophone timbre. After hearing the melodies, there was a 10-minute break, and then the participants were asked to identify whether they heard certain melodies before the 10-minute break. The participants were also asked to rate how annoying the sounds were. Compared to the IEC sounds, melodies played in the xylophone timbre were less annoying, but were not less recognizable. So I guess recognizing melodies is assumed to transfer to recognizing alarm in hospital settings. So maybe we should make hospital alarms less annoying. I mean, the study doesn't really matter. I just wanted to talk about how people die due to alarm blindness, which does seem kind of trivial on the surface. I would be so pissed if I was in the hospital and an annoying alarm that kept going off was the reason that I died. Moving on, speaking of health studies, a German man has been studied by scientists after deliberately getting vaccinated against COVID 217 times in just 29 months, an average of about one shot every 4 days. Although there was a time in January 2022 where this man got shots in both his left and right arm almost every day for a total of 48 shots in 1 month. That is too many. As far as the research, he actually has not had any adverse health effects, but his immune response wasn't much different from someone who had been given only 3 doses of the vaccine, which is what is recommended. This is interesting, though. In some chronic diseases, for example, the immune system can become fatigued after prolonged exposure to a pathogen. And theoretically, hypervaccination could work the same way, but that's not what the researchers found. This isn't recommended, by the way, to get vaccinated 217 times. As far as the man, we don't know why he did this. We do know that the man was detained by police at one point because some people at the time were illegally selling vaccination cards to third parties. There was a story I remember from a few years ago where another German man had been vaccinated 90 times against COVID to sell vaccine cards. But that's a different man. That's not the same man as the German man from this story, which is crazy. But the man in this newer story never had criminal charges brought against him for selling vaccine cards. So I guess he just liked to get vaccinated. And it wasn't just one type of vaccine. He had a whole bunch of vaccines. He got a whole bunch of different vaccines. Just this guy looking at a schedule like, let's see, Pfizer on Monday, Johnson & Johnson on Tuesday, Moderna on Wednesday. Screw it. That weird Russian vaccine on Thursday. Do you remember that vaccine that Russia released in like August of 2020? Sputnik 5, it's called. I guess subsequent studies from other countries have found it to be safe and effective, which I didn't realize. And it's actually like approved in quite a lot of countries. I digress. The last thing I want to say about this story is that the German man from the story has never been infected with COVID. Yeah, I mean, that might make sense. Moving on. In Alaska, the yearly Iditarod Trail Sled Dog Race is a sled dog race where participants have to travel 938 miles from Anchorage to Nome, Alaska, having to traverse 2 mountain ranges, often having to face blizzards or sub-zero temperatures with wind chills as low as negative 100 degrees Fahrenheit. It doesn't sound fun to do this race. Well, another challenge that mushers might have to face is being attacked by a moose. A moose attacked musher Dallas Seavey and injured one of his dogs, forcing Seavey to shoot and kill the moose with a handgun. The rules of the race require mushers to gut any moose that they kill. And Seavey claims that he gutted the moose, quote, the best he could. But Iditarod officials determined that he had not gutted the moose properly and penalized Seavey with a 2-hour penalty, adding it to his mandatory 24-hour layover, after which Seavey would go on to win the whole race anyways, with a time of 9 days, 2 hours, 16 minutes, and 8 seconds. It's not like Dallas Seavey is a newcomer. He's won the race 5 times previously and has had the record for the fastest finish in 2021. The injured dog was dropped off at the next checkpoint and flown to Anchorage for veterinary care. The moose was processed by race officials and distributed as food. One thing I'll note to finish this off: the Iditarod is facing criticism from animal rights groups because this year 3 different dogs died, which, to be fair, does seem like a lot of dead dogs. It had been going on a streak for a few years where no dogs had died, but this year, for some reason, 3 dogs have left us. Sad. Moving on, 2 men were arrested in Minnesota after being found with suspected stolen graphing calculators. An investigation revealed that the 2 men had robbed at least 8 targets around St. Paul, Minnesota, a theft totaling $18,500. And this story comes just after a month after a Wisconsin man was arrested after being suspected of stealing over $90,000 worth of calculators, also from targets across the states of Indiana and Georgia. $90,000 worth of graphing calculators may sound like a lot, but it's actually probably like only a couple hundred, honestly. Graphic calculators are really expensive. I bought one for high school and spent a lot of time learning how to use it. Well, come college, and not a single one of my classes allow graphing calculators on tests and things. I think it's like a university-wide policy. So that was a waste of time and money. But isn't that just a metaphor for college overall? Moving on. Last September, a woman was driving a car in Minnesota, when they crashed into an Amish horse-drawn carriage, tragically killing 2 children. This is a tragedy, right? But this is where it gets weird. Initially on the scene, a woman named Sarah Beth Peterson was the one who initially told authorities that she had been responsible. But now, prosecutors allege that the actual driver was not Sarah Beth, but her identical twin sister, Samantha Jo, and that Sarah Beth had shown up on the scene after the accident, but before authorities arrived, allowing Samantha Joe and Sarah Beth to change places. Prosecutors were able to find this absolutely insane text from Samantha Joe's phone. Quote, "I hit that Amish buggy and killed 2 people. Made Sarah come there and take the fall for it so that I wouldn't go to prison." Like, imagine getting that text. So why would the 2 switch places? Prosecutors say that the actual driver, Samantha Joe, was high on drugs, and that Sarah Beth must have not wanted Samantha Joe to go to prison, especially since Samantha Joe had already gotten 2 DWI arrests in the past, and a charge for giving her sister's name to law enforcement. We really should have saw this coming, to be honest. Moving on. In Wisconsin, a man, Eric Hovde, who was running for Congress, tried to dispel the idea that he was actually a soft Californian by posting an X video. That sounds wrong, doesn't it? He posted a video on Twitter showing himself shirtless, chest deep in a frozen lake, and then challenged his opponent, Senator Tammy Baldwin, to, quote, "Get out here in this frozen lake and let's really see who's from Wisconsin." So, I mean, this guy was born and raised in Wisconsin, but I guess he owns a bank in California and owns a $7 million mansion in California. I guess Hovde also bought and then demolished one of the oldest family-owned bars in Wisconsin. Oh my God, it's too much. It's too much. Yeah, I'm actually from Wisconsin, but I've never been in a frozen lake before. I don't know how much being from Wisconsin necessarily correlates with being inside of a frozen lake. Honestly, it's probably not no correlation. As a general rule, if I ever see a political candidate shirtless, I'm not voting for them. Moving on. All right, we've hit the gross part of the show. According to a new book that was released a couple of months ago, Joe Biden once joked to his aides that the key to a long marriage is, and I quote, "good sex." They call him Sleepy Joe because he's up all night. I also learned from this article that Joe Biden proposed to Jill Biden 5 times before she said yes. Ooh. I mean, she said yes eventually, so that says something. All right, let's just move on. For the first time ever, 2 humpback whales were recorded off the coast of Hawaii having sex. Humpback whales have never been seen mating before. And this is the kicker. Both of the whales were male. When you read the story, it's actually kind of sad, though. One of the whales was sick and dying and appeared to be trying to get away from the other whale, but couldn't because it was slow and weak, and showed signs of distress when the actual incident took place. So that's sad. But on the bright side, we now have a new entry on the Wikipedia page list of animals displaying homosexual behavior. The humpback whale has always been a kind of gay animal, though. I guess male humpback whales have on a few occasions been seen pointing their penis at other males, because normally it's like retracted up into their body. You don't want out that massive amount of drag. But sometimes it's protruding, right? And oftentimes they have their penis pointing at other males, which I guess is thought to be a possible display of dominance. You ever notice how many whale names sound a bit like suggestive? Like the humpback, the sperm whale, and who could forget the gay sex whale? All right. I don't know if that joke works, but we're just going to move on. The great white shark, a large, terrifying apex predator of the ocean. It only has one fear, the killer whale, which regularly kill great white sharks and eat their livers. Normally, orcas hunt sharks in groups, but for the first time, a lone killer whale was seen killing a great white shark and did so in only 2 minutes. Honestly, kind of terrifying. Killer whales don't attack humans in the wild, but if they wanted to, they could make going into the ocean a horrible experience for humans. Actually, some already do. Remember the boat sinking orca? The boat sinking orcas from the Strait of Gibraltar. I would like to remind everybody that that whole saga was only caused by like 15 individual killer whales. If the 50,000 or so killer whales that exist in the oceans decided to team up, that would be bad. All right. Longtime viewers of the channel know that I like to end these shows on a really good article, and this week is no different. An Australian berry company has grown the world's heaviest blueberry at a staggering 0.72 ounces, which doesn't sound like a lot. But when you look at the picture, you think, yeah, wow, that's a big blueberry. The company has not decided what to do with the blueberry the last time I checked. From the head of the team that grew the berry, quote, "We all look at it occasionally and smile." And I think that's beautiful. All right, well, that's all I have today. I'll see you very soon. Very soon. Probably like 3 weeks from now.